Hey guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Iman and today I'm going to be sharing a bit about my Graves' disease story. So how I got diagnosed and what symptoms I had. This is my first YouTube video ever, so please bear with me guys. I do have notes all around, so if you notice my eyes darting back and forth, it's because I'm referring to my notes as I don't want to miss anything important. Also, if you notice my eyes look a little bit funny in the video, this is one of the effects of Graves' disease, and I'll explain this a little bit later in the video. But let's jump straight into it. So first things first, Graves' disease is an autoimmune condition where your body produces antibodies against your thyroid, and in some cases like mine, against your eyes. I got officially diagnosed at the end of July 2020, but looking back, I've had symptoms as far back as 2017. So the first symptom of autoimmunity I had was fatigue. I would have these fatigue episodes, and I remember going to the doctor on several occasions and they would just assume it was malaria. And I guess that's pretty common here in Nigeria because malaria is endemic. And it's just low-hanging fruit, and I think doctors always want to rule that out. But they would do malaria tests and the test results would always come back scanty, so not enough malaria to cause symptoms. But they would prescribe me malaria medication anyway, and malaria meds tend to be quite strong, so I'd have to sleep a lot, drink a lot of fluids, and I think because of that I would end up feeling better, and I'll just carry on with my life until the next fatigue episode would recur. Now fast forward to 2019 and I was living in the French Alps where I was doing my master's, and I remember that's when the heat intolerance started. So in summer 2019 I was incredibly hot, and then in August 2019 I went on a trip to Dubai with my friend, and although Dubai is incredibly hot, for me it was excruciating. And I remember this one time, I was sweating so much, it looked like someone had poured a bucket of water on me. And my friend had the dazzling idea to take a picture of me, and she went to post it on social media, and I got very irritated at her, as you can imagine. But that was a symptom of Graves' disease, and I didn't realize at the time. I do also recall that in my apartment in France, every time I'd have friends over, they would be freezing, whereas I would be comfortable or even a little bit hot. But I thought that was just them. I didn't think it was anything to do with me. And then towards the end of 2019, I must say in 2019, I really started experiencing weight loss, but then I didn't think much of it because I was studying very hard and I was eating fairly healthily and I was also exercising regularly. So I didn't think much of that. But then that year, the fatigue had increased. So it had become almost to a point where I would feel like my soul was about to leave my body, but I would just sleep it off and then I would be fine. I also started to experience low mood, but at the time I'd had a lot of stress with looking for work, so I just put it down to the stress from work. Now in November 2019, I came back home for what was supposed to be a brief trip, and you know, the weather in Nigeria is incredibly hot, so of course, you know, I was very sweaty. The profuse sweating continued, but I thought it was just, you know, that my body needed time to adjust from living in France, in the French Alps, where the weather was mostly cold, to living in Nigeria, which is very hot and humid. But in March 2020, that's when everything got really, really bad. So I was extremely fatigued and weak and unmotivated. I was hungry all the time. And I mean intense hunger with sugar cravings. So I was indulging in a lot of junk food. Yet I was still losing weight, but I refused to believe it because it just didn't make sense. I was so weak, so I wasn't exercising properly, and I was eating lots of junk food. How could I be losing weight? A friend of mine around this time told me about a challenge called 75 Hard. I don't know if you've heard about this challenge before, and I have to make something clear. I'm not endorsing this challenge in any way. Perhaps it's a good idea for some people, but I don't think it's a good idea for anyone with untreated Graves' disease, which I had at the time, but of course I didn't realize. Anyway, I only managed to do this challenge for 7 days because I was so weak, you know, my joints were aching, and I think it sent my body into overdrive. So of course, I'm not saying that this challenge caused my Graves' disease, because I have highlighted symptoms of Graves' disease that I had long before I ever heard about the challenge, but it did send my body into overdrive. And if you have Graves' disease, or you know anything about Graves' disease, then you know that our bodies can be very sensitive to intense physical activity. And I think this is what happened to me, because during the challenge, that's when the diarrhea started, and it did continue even after I stopped the challenge. And then I was having other symptoms such as heart palpitations. I noticed that my skin would bruise very, very easily. Just the slightest bit of pressure and it would bruise and it would start to bleed. And then my joint pain, it was so bad. Walking up and down the stairs was becoming a bit of an issue. I was having memory issues and headaches, and then I had really terrible insomnia. And although I've had bad sleep habits since high school, this had gotten so bad that at a point I couldn't sleep till 5 a.m. in the morning, and then I'd wake up at 3 p.m. in the afternoon just feeling incredibly groggy and terrible. And then I also was losing more weight. So by June, for example, clothes that fit me in March, they were baggy. And then I had tremors in my hands, and the low mood had become so debilitating. You know, I was extremely depressed, irritated all the time. I even had suicidal thoughts, and basic things like brushing my teeth became incredibly difficult to do. And I'd also become very reclusive. I was just angry all the time. But then you may be wondering why, with all these symptoms, why I didn't go to see the doctor. But I think it's important to realize that at the time, I thought I had clinical depression. And if you look at the symptoms of clinical depression, a lot of them are very similar to the symptoms of Graves' disease. So symptoms such as fatigue or insomnia, or even joint pain, weakness, these are all symptoms of clinical depression. And clinical depression is very poorly understood in Nigeria, and it's a bit of a taboo. So I think that was something I wanted to be sure of, I guess, before I made a move on. But also I was so depressed, I was so reclusive. I wasn't, besides my obvious symptoms, I wasn't telling my parents about things like suicidal thoughts, you know, or the diarrhea. And then I was also very irritable, so everyone was trying their best not to ruffle my feathers. And this also happened around the beginning of COVID-19, so everyone is having a really hard time with that. But to cut the long story short, sometime around May or June, I started to have really bad skin issues. And those were especially puzzling because I've never had skin issues my whole life. But then I just had this hyperpigmentation on my face, on my neck, the scarlet patches around my chest, and then these sore patches on my elbows and behind my knees. And the ones especially on my elbows and behind my knees, they would get just really itchy and really sore whenever I sweated, and that happened a lot, as you know. But anyway, I decided to go see a dermatologist for those issues. And then when I got to his office, the air conditioner was on and it was quite cold, but he noticed that I was sweating profusely. And as he came close to examine my neck and my chest, he noticed that my skin was soft and moist to the touch. He also noticed that I had a bulge, so a goiter at the base of my neck, and that my eyes were also bulgy. So you could see the tops of my eyes, the white part of my eyes, even when I was just looking normally. And you know, then I told him about my other symptoms, like my tremors. He noticed those in my hands, my heart palpitations. And then he broke the news to me, and he said, based on how you're presenting, I do think you have Graves' disease, but you'll have to see an endocrinologist and run tests to confirm. And I did see an endocrinologist, and we ran all the tests, and it did confirm that I had Graves' disease. It was a relief, I guess, when the dermatologist broke the news to me. It wasn't totally surprising because I was already familiar with Graves' disease through Wendy Williams. And another funny story, like a couple of weeks, I would say, before I went to see the dermatologist, I was just browsing on Google and I came across Graves' disease and all the symptoms. And I remember joking with my sister that I found a disease of which I had all the symptoms for, but then we just laughed it off because we thought it was just being a hypochondriac. Surely things like that don't happen. I also remember this funny time when I was arguing with it's funny now. I was arguing, just having a discussion with my parents, and my dad innocently asked why I was opening my eyes so much while I was speaking. And I got so upset because I thought he was making fun of me, but he was actually noticing the bulgy eyes that come with thyroid eye disease. So it wasn't a complete shock when the dermatologist broke the news to me, but it was still something scary. No one in my family had ever had Graves' disease, and although I was aware of the condition, I just never thought it'd be anything to have to do with me. So, I mean, now the bulge in my neck has gone down since I started treatment. My eyes also are less bulgy, but you'll notice that one is noticeably bigger than the other. And I mean, like, that's all part of the healing process. But I'm very, very grateful to the endocrinologist. I'm grateful that he was observant, because some dermatologists would have been more concerned with just focusing on the skin and perhaps wouldn't have noticed all the other symptoms I was showing. So I'm very grateful. And one of the things that helped me when I first got diagnosed, and I was incredibly scared, and I went through almost a bit of a grieving process, learning to accept the diagnosis and my new normal. One thing I found really comforting and even empowering was watching other people's Graves' disease story videos. And that's why I made this video. So if you're watching and you have Graves' disease, or if you've just been diagnosed, I want you to know that you're not alone. I'm with you, and you have solidarity with many, many others who are not only living with this condition, but who are thriving and overcoming. And there are things we can do to help our bodies heal, many of which I've been practicing myself, and I will be sharing these in subsequent videos. So stay tuned. Have a lovely day and never lose hope. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, please like, comment, share, subscribe. If you have any questions or would like to add anything else, please leave those in the comments below, because your comments will help me improve and grow my channel. Thank you. Have a lovely day. Bye.